podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Welcome to Fight Fever, your best place for all your fight action, whether it's boxing, MMA, WWE. I'm sure we're going to get a bit of abuse at some point because I've said that on every single podcast so far, and you still don't have much content from there. I'm going to blame the other guys. I'm passing the buck. There's another team. They need to get their finger out and start getting some stuff out there, because I'll start at the top with just saying there's huge things going on in WWE wrestling right now. Dave, my guest here today, and I are not the most well-versed, but let's just say this big deal they've done with The Rock is momentous, and it needs to be getting talked about, and hopefully you'll have some content in the next week or so. I'll certainly push for it. But back to today's podcast, my special guest, as always, and co-host, should I say, Dave Davis. How are you, Dave?
Yeah, good. Looking forward to this one, mate. There's a lot happening, eh?
Bit of controversy kicking about in the world of boxing. There's nothing new there, but enough to get our teeth stuck into. But let's start with some actual boxing, some actual fights. And there was a couple of fights over the weekend where the Dan Azeez it was a domestic showdown. Two big mates, you can safely say, took on Joshua Buatsi. The fight got cancelled, then it got rescheduled, and they didn't mess around. They got in the ring, and all I can say from watching the fight, two ultimate professionals.
Yeah, this was good. This is boxer slowly, very slowly, let's not pretend, but just starting to build a bit of momentum, because they had Mayor Jonas the other week, and this was a really good fight. There's no two ways about it. It was active. I mean, Buatsi was a worthy winner, but I don't want to diminish Azeez when I say this, but you watch that fight and Buatsi wasn't really pushed too much. He had to work a bit, but you could hear Buddy McGirt, Azeez's trainer, screaming like, work the body down, move, go forward. And I don't know if it was he just couldn't quite put the foot on the gas, or sometimes you have to respect the opponent. They stop you doing it. And I think you saw in this fight that Buatsi had far more power than Azeez. Azeez was awkward because he was ducking down, coming up through the levels, and that jab was still finding a home. So it made Buatsi weary, but the power punches were coming from Buatsi. Now, the knockdowns, there's two things to this. The first one, it is a knockdown, people. I know the floor of the canvas was slippy. If he hits him and it causes him to slip and fall, it's a knockdown. If he just slips, it's not. But if there's contact, that still classes a knockdown. It doesn't have to be knockout blows all the time. The second one, I think it's just those full 360 haymaker swings and just completely loses his balance. So why the ref gave anything for that, I've no idea. However, in the grand context of things, Buatsi won it at a canter. It was a good fight. It was interesting to watch. And it was like you said, it was solid British. I do think Buatsi's a better level and can go up. It might just be, to be honest, the weight class he's in. It's just the ultimate problem, isn't it? And who you're looking at above there.
I totally agree with you. Brave man, Dan Azeez.
Yeah.
Brave man. But when you can see from what, in the fight, Buatsi is not threatened by his power. And when he wanted to, he was just teeing off on Azeez. I kind of sent him, like, let's just keep going toe-to-toe. I'm enjoying this. And he gave him so much respect after the fight, and rightfully so. The guy deserved respect, but there's levels to the game for a reason.
Yeah.
And I thought before the fight, Joshua Buatsi would win, but I thought Dan Azeez, if ever there's going to be a guy at kind of domestic level that might just give him a scare, it could be him. But Buatsi just... he never looked like he was going to lose the fight. Let's be honest. You can call it. It was a great fight. The fans got their money's worth.
Yeah.
But you're watching a really good fighter, probably more on an elite level. Although the level he wants to get to means he needs to fight guys like Bivol and Beterbiev. And I don't know if he's up to that standard. But I mean, he's certainly just below that. And these guys are super elite fighters. And he was always, I thought, going to be a bit much, and that's what it proved in the night. But here's a fight now. Joshua Buatsi Anthony Yard.
Two things to this. Number one, I would love to see that. I think that would be an absolutely brilliant fight. Where I think this is going to come unstuck a bit now for Buatsi is, like you said, Bivol better be able to forget them for a sec. You're coming down a level. So probably Anthony Yard, world class, but not elite. So that's the one to really count, see that and see how that works out. And then you've got Callum Smith in the mix at the same time as well, who's just lost, to better be able. For me, probably better than the other two, but you could have a little bit of almost a triangle tournament.
I have to come in here, Dave. I thought Anthony Yard did a lot better against Beterbiev than Callum Smith did.
I would love to see Yard versus Smith. And
that's a fight.
This is the second one. I think that is more likely. And the sole reason for that being more likely is that, the Matchroom Queensbury tournament, Smith's with Eddie Hearn, isn't he, in Matchroom, Yard. That, unfortunately, I think is just going to be Buatsi's undoing.
That's a lick your lips fight. But I guess what we're all going to be waiting for is Callum Smith. Does he want it anymore? I'm getting kind of vibes out of that camp. And just from some of his interviews, that might be him. He's done very well out of the sport. But I'm sure, as we keep talking about on these podcasts now, if the Saudi money comes, that could get him up off the couch.
There's a nice thing to revitalise Callum Smith because there's that Matchroom versus Queensbury. So you're in that. It's a big headline, big money as well. Like you said, that's the big thing. And then the second thing is if he wins that, there's Buatsi as well. So we can keep it. You never know. We may even fancy going again at Bivol or Beterbiev. We'll have to see how that plays out. But I'll go against you on that. I just get the feeling Callum Smith just gets tempted by the almighty dollar and does come back. But let's see.
Listen, we wouldn't hold it against him because we're not just talking about a couple of dollars here. We're probably going to be talking about a career high payday, probably even bigger than what the money he got to fight the likes of Canelo Alvarez. So, if that fight gets made, I think Callum Smith has been a great servant to British boxing. I think the Smith brothers in general have all been great servants to British boxing. I think, if you ask me, Paul did really well when you look at the latter part of his career, fighting the likes of Arthur Abraham and some other great fighters that he fought. I reckon probably Liam and Callum have been like two of the brothers who really have kind of found their feet in world boxing. None of them have quite managed to go into that kind of elite level. But, I mean, they've held titles. They've been great success. But, yeah, I like that fight. Anthony Yard, Callum Smith. I think that would be a barnstormer.
Absolutely magic. Honestly, any triangle tournament version with Buatsi, Smith, Yard, you'd watch it. Whatever channel, whatever it is, you'd watch it. Simple as that.
I agree. The other fight on the card was, boxers' other big upcoming talent. And like you say, I think they're starting to just form a decent stable now, which is people are starting to talk about more and more. And the key is going to be keeping these fighters because there's going to be interest in them as their contracts come to an end. But Adam Super Kid Azeez he's making inroads, and he was fighting for a European title against a guy who, was the belt holder and had to kind of relinquish it due to injury, etc. I'm not going to get too carried away. We talked about this before we came on. I mean, Coulson was never in that fight. Well, Adam Azeez just worked him over and looked very comfortable.
Listen, I hate being derogatory about fighters because it's the toughest sport in the world, and what's on the line and all. We've talked about that, but it's a complete mismatch. And there's Adam Azeez, and then the other one that Boxer have got now is Ben Whittaker as well. And I'm sure everyone's seen the memes and the gif of him doing all the thing. It's like they're trying to almost build him as the next Naz a little bit because of his style and his profile. All that. And I get that. That's what Boxer are trying to do. Here's the big problem. If you keep putting them in complete mismatches, it loses credibility really quickly. And the reason it'll lose credibility quickly is because what we're seeing in Saudi and the other fights that are being made. So it's great that Boxer are doing this, and even they had Riakporhe and Bill and Smith announced and all that. But they're not going to get away with any of these tomato can fights anymore. You've got to put them in, like, just keep advancing them. And listen, it doesn't have to be, as we know, straight into a world title fight. That's not going to happen. We get that. But you're going to have to start now, moving through the levels. Adam Azeez, do you want to see him in any fight below like a British title now? Or
No, I'm not interested anymore.
Like
I'm not interested.
No.
He's a step above that level. Totally agree with you. Who do you, if you're his matchmaker, who do you think? I mean, there'll definitely be some Mexican out there for sure.
Yeah.
Who would probably give him a bloody hard night's work. They always are ready and game to come in, and that would be a good maybe route to go against somebody really hard that's just going to cut and will throw punches back. But otherwise, who do you think? I don't think they should go. I don't think they should go world title just yet. But it needs to be a higher level contender now.
It's got to be. And listen, I won't pretend I know who's got the European belt in that division. I think the biggest problem, and again, this sounds terrible, but you mentioned a great point for me. Sky, Boxer, they don't control those American, Mexican fighters. We know it's Matchroom to some extent, Top Rank, Al Heyman, and PBC. So how are they going to make those fights? I'm just thinking like it's going to be difficult. It wouldn't surprise me, and this sounds terrible, if Adam Azeez is with Sky and Boxer in a few years, because he's thinking, if I'm going to advance my career and get these matches made, Queensbury, Matchroom, and these others are where the power is at the moment. And whilst Boxer's rising, and all boats rise in a high tide, as they say, I'm just struggling to see it. But yeah, unless it's even European, you might be, I'll tune in, but we've got to see him in front of a body before we get too excited and quickly.
I think you're right. They're going to do well to hold on to him if they don't start to match him well and build his profile even more. Look, he's on a big platform, but it's nowhere near the platform right now that Queensbury and Matchroom are able to produce with their relationship with Saudi Arabia. Another big fight at the weekend was a return of Conor Benn, where he took on the tough American, Dobson. What did you make of that fight?
Yeah, it's an interesting one, isn't this? Because Peter Dobson has a few question marks, but his CV's not disastrous. Let's not pretend it's just a body in there. But you do look at it and think, okay, he should be breezing past this. Now, I'm trying to be careful how I tread here, as we know, but...
I'm not going to be. If I've had it, you can tread carefully, but I can say, well, I take the elephant out of the room. He hasn't looked like he's had the same power since the controversy.
Nowhere near since the controversy. He didn't look like he had that explosive power one bit. And yeah, the scorecards were right. He won that fight. He won 99% of the rounds. Don't disagree with that at all.
As he did the fight before.
Exactly. But what everyone is looking at is the Conor before the controversy was going through people all of a sudden. And that's fair to say. And now it looks like whether it's not quite there. And you can tell that Matchroom and everyone else is aware of it, because look at what Eddie Hearn and Conor Benn are doing.
They're trying to cash out, aren't they? They're trying to cash out.
Overtime. Absolute overtime Eddie Hearn is going after that. He's there with him doing like double mic interviews. Look, I mean, he called out 4 fighters. He went back to Eubank to be like, sign the deal, blah, blah. And I get that, because that's massive money beyond belief for both of them. Adrian Broner's name came up. Tank Day. He was just going through all of them. And the problem was, all of those, you just kept thinking, they'll beat him. They'll beat him.
Well, the other name, and fair play to his father, who I don't know if you've seen the interaction they had at the press conference, but Devin Haney's dad.
True or false? Hats make you go bald. This is actually false. Maybe still skip the fedora, though. Hair loss is a genetic condition that affects 2 out of 3 men by the age of 35. Those aren't great odds. But the good news is that Keeps can help with expert, personalized care and science-backed treatments that are up to 90% effective at reducing hair loss. All without leaving the house, delivered straight to your door. Hair loss stops with Keeps. For a special offer to get started, go to keeps.com/podcast. That's KEEPS.com/podcast.
He came down at the press conference and was really respectful. he's probably a smart man as well. He's probably thinking, my son will wipe the floor with you and will get
Yeah.
paid a lot of money to do it. So he's
Yeah.
kind of said, you come from a legend of the sport. You are legends in the sport. I respect you. I think you're a real contender. And, hopefully we can do something. And he's probably said to his son, I'm going to go and pick a fight. And he's probably thinking, do it. Because he'll come to Saudi and he'll make an absolute fortune. But Conor Benn saying, Devin Haney's easy work. Come on, Conor. Like, did you watch his last performance? He's in a special place, and if that fight was to happen, I think I would be. I personally think it would be a very, very one-sided masterclass beatdown by Devin Haney.
I just there's no strategy for Conor Benn and Eddie Hearn bar money and lawsuits, and we know the second bit and what's going on. So he can't fight in Britain. I mean, 6 months ago, let's be clear, they called out a retired Kell Brook.
Yeah.
And now we want to fight world champion Devin Haney, and we're calling it easy work.
Not even world champion. You're talking top 3 pound per pound kind of conversation.
So Conor Benn, in simple terms, is looking for the most money, as is Eddie Hearn. And what is Eddie Hearn looking for? 3 separate interviews now about Chris Eubank. They're trying to goad Eubank into it now, aren't they? Because they think they're looking and thinking, okay, we could win, but it'll just draw massive money. It's a cash out. Unfortunately, Conor Benn is losing credibility every fight that goes by. When I say credibility, he's still a boxer, he's still getting the business done, he's winning. I get that, but he's not looking half as powerful. And the things coming out, they're not John Fury mental, but they're a little bit like, right, okay.
No, he looks like that. He looks like it, because otherwise, what's the rush? Still a young man. What is it's almost like they know our days are numbered and it's only a matter of time. So now here's the other interesting thing. If Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn gets made, the money test again is going to be from Saudi. But that fight's got to happen in a British stadium. I mean, the name Ben Eubank, the British punters, it's like, are Saudi still could they do a deal with Saudi? The Saudi still were involved in it, but allowed it to take place. I don't think that's what kind of business they're in. They look like they want it on their soil. I think it would be one of the biggest, saddest things, as much as I think it's amazing what they're doing in Saudi with boxing. But if Chris Eubank Jr. and Conor Benn gets made, surely it's a Wembley or a big stadium in Britain. The build up, their fathers on site for the fight, the history there. But I fear that money will talk and it will go to Saudi.
Yeah, I think in simple terms, we both need to get ready to cry a bit with this one, because you're right. It should be Wembley. It should be the full British build-up. It should be monocles, jodhpurs, like Gucci suits, the lot type of things from the dads. But the smart money says Vegas second, but Saudi and big money and everyone taking home a big check, I'm afraid. So I just cannot see it at all, mate. Got to be honest.
I can't either. I think it'll be Saudi. I think it'll be Saudi bound. But let's see. I mean, we're only coming from like British fans.
100%.
But let's see. Just to finish on, let's talk about the biggest controversy in world boxing, and that is the fight being cancelled between the Gypsy King Tyson Fury and Alexander Usyk. Reason being, Fury was cut above the left eye in sparring. It caused a bit of a storm because I think many people were expecting Tyson Fury to pull out of this fight. I was one of them at first that was like, I knew he was going to do this. We have now seen a bit more footage of it. We've seen him on kind of live cam. You can see the eyes, not in a good way. He has been cut. They've moved quickly. They've rescheduled for May 18th. It just adds to the spice a little bit more. It just keeps us all waiting for this long-anticipated, undisputed heavyweight title fight.
It's so funny. It's amazing how everyone becomes a boxing expert, and look at us talking all of a sudden. But it's fake. It was this. It's a beauty of a cut. You can see it, and you can see it go through the head guard, the elbow, all that type of thing. And Boxing experts then come out everywhere to say, oh, this is the wrong say. It's head guard. That doesn't happen. What you always do in these circumstances is look to what do the experts say. And if you look at what the experts say, retired fighters, trainers, they all said, by the way, people get cut in training and sparring. Why are people pretending this is a brand new thing and it only relates to Tyson Fury? Like, if you know your fight history, George Foreman got cut big time in the build-up to the Rumble in the Jungle. He only stayed there because they confiscated his passport. He wanted to go home, didn't he? More like, he healed through time there, and all these things. It's a beauty of a cut. Turkey Al-Sheikh, I love the way he came on camera and mediated between the two, and they did it on Ariel Hawani's podcast.
He almost looks like a wee little Colombian gangster or something like that, one of the cartels. He's cool.
I absolutely love that. That interview is the best thing because the gloves off stuff they did was all a bit boring and just the normal stuff. But Turkey Al-Sheikh sat with Tyson Fury. And then on the other side, Usyk and not his manager, not Krasic, the other guy, I think is his general manager, just going back and forth again with some of the normal Fury nonsense and all this. And then I love this. I absolutely love this. The way you say, oh, you call me a pussy, you call me and all this, blah, blah, blah. And then literally the Sheikh turns around and goes, no more pussy, no more. Anyone pulls out 10 million, literally, which makes it sound like 10 million is a small fraction of their purse. Do you know what I mean? It's just a small scary wrist. So they're just like 10 million just gone. So you can imagine like what the actual purses are, but just the back and forth and all this. Nothing surprises you with Tyson Fury, but for me, it's a legit cut. It's happened. If anything, now, have you seen the bills he's built up? Like, literally the way you say, we'll get Bivol. This will be May the 18th. We'll get Bivol, Beterbiev, 1st of June. We'll get the 5-on-5. Like, this has almost worked out better.
Never seen it in boxing.
Absolutely crazy. And by the way, that podcast, an interview between two heavyweight champions with just Turkey Al-Sheikh sat there with Tyson Fury. Unreal. If you've not seen it, watch it. I promise you, you'll love it.
Get on to it if you haven't seen it. It is box office entertainment with a Sheikh just sitting in the background, looking cool. And yeah, you heard the comments from Dave. He was very funny. And it's pantomime. It's pantomime, but we all love it as boxing fans. And I think it might have just added to the spice. Yeah. Again, though, for me, Fury just looks like nervous energy. We talk about being a mental health advocate and everything else, but it's just constant insults about what Usyk looks like. You're ugly, gappy teeth, and it's getting boring. Have you got any other content? To me, for the first time, I think Fury fighting somebody looks very rattled.
With those Wilder fights, he rattled Wilder. Yeah, Wilder used to be the big man, dominating frame and all this. And he realised that Tyson Fury is a bit, they say, obviously mental health problems are well known, but he's different to your standard operator. Klitschko found out the first time round, okay, the standard techniques, if you want to call it that, doesn't work. Usyk has been smart. He's not risen to the bait. I also like that Usyk chooses or likes to pretend when he does and doesn't know English when it suits him type of thing at times as well.
Yeah. He understands everything. He plays it.
Switches on very well, but he smiles, he does his whole thing, and we get the full Fury bingo, don't we? Like, Dosser, gap tooth, buddy, Rory, it's just the same stuff. You could have a Tyson Fury bingo card, and within 5 minutes, you just got your dabber stamping go, and you're going, boring. It's the one thing that is so strange is Tyson Fury has a very intelligent boxing brain. He talks about boxing history and fighters, and he can really break down a fight and analyze it when you've seen it. But he just flips this autopilot thing. And to be honest, like you said, there's a hypocritical element to it because we hear the mental health, we hear the campaigns, but then we don't see it, and we hear people's appearances attacked, but it's just so predictable. And to be honest, it's getting that way with Tyson Fury that his stock was so high after the Netflix documentary, wasn't it? People loved him. He's down to earth. The more and more it goes on until he gets in that ring It's just coming down a little bit, isn't it? We're all just like, we've seen this. Fight or shut up.
Yeah, that's that. I agree. But and anyway, somebody else does enough talking for him because we'll finish up
Yeah.
on his father, who's just come out and called out Carl Froch to fight him in front of. I mean, we're talking about what age must John Fury be? There's been a bit of back and forth. Carl Froch is clearly not the biggest Tyson Fury fan, and he calls out a lot of his crap. His dad's come and they've had a bit of back and forth, and now his dad's challenged him to a fight. Look, I think Froch will just laugh it off. I don't see him getting tempted into it. I don't think they should sanction it anyway because his dad's not healthy enough to be getting in a ring to fight Carl Froch. But John Fury, he's just he's. I mean, I'm kind of over him. I find even all that stuff with Jake Paul and everything taking his top off in the ring. Like he clearly wants to be the centre of attention, and it's just getting. I think it's a bit boring. And I reckon Carl Froch is ever since he got that psychology for the second fight with George Groves, Carl Froch is the ultimate wind-up merchant. I just see him baiting him more and more and letting him go off like a chihuahua. But I don't see the fight happening, put it that way.
Carl Froch is brilliant. He understands the game and every element of the game. We've got Froch on fighting, which is brilliant. He does talk sport. He knows how to build fights, give honest opinions, and also say things that rattle people. And what's funny is, you'd think Tyson can be hypocritical. John Fury's another level. Because John Fury starts this whole thing where you were rattled, my son, we're a has-been and all this. It's like, Carl Froch is not rattled. Then Carl Froch come back was like, what are you calling me? That's been never been.
Carl Froch is an ex-world champion who fought in the final of the against probably one of the best boxers of any generation in Andre Ward. John Fury, from what I've seen, is a guy that got sparked out a couple of times. So, I don't know what I'll fight any man on this planet. I'll fight Mike Tyson. I'll fight this guy. I'll fight that. No, you wouldn't. You would get obliterated.
Got to remember, I'd love to see this in one perverse way, because Carl Froch, as he says, he's still training. We know that. He doesn't just keeps in shape.
Still fit as a fiddle. He probably could come in the ring and still fight some of the top contenders and at least the British level are around there. Yeah, I think he would handle John Fury with ease.
And you think, John Fury, your son is about to be in an undisputed heavyweight title fight. I mean, the hypocritical, just the nonsense coming out his mouth. I mean, that line where it's like, I'm a one-man band, speak to me. And then 2 seconds later,
I'm a one-man band, speak to me.
All my people. Like, hold on, how many people is there? I thought it was just you type of thing.
By the way, we better be careful. If this gets spotted,
oh, God,
I reckon he's going to be after us too. And if he comes, I'm sending him to your door.
This is why we're doing this behind the desk with like earphones and all this, just to be clear. But speaking of wouldn't do anything, Carl Froch, if he was in front of John Fury, he'd be screaming. And when they do that pantomime, like, hold me back, lads, hold me back.
Yeah, it's what he always does. He's always like he wants to fight, but
he's never going to do anything. Mike Tyson, Carl Froch, Carl Frampton he threatened, and he's obviously like attacked. Like, are you just going to keep? He almost calls out old boxing pros to try and stay relevant. I mean, I'm not being funny. Your son is fighting for the undisputed heavyweight championship of the world.
Don't draw more attention to this than you need to. He's got enough on his back without his dad just constantly embarrassing him.
Yeah, and it all feels a bit like for John Fury to get some adulation, live vicariously a bit through Tyson, and try and get some almost money or deals of his own. But like, Christ, your son's probably about to get 200 million quid. I'm sure he'll throw you a few.
I'm sure you'll get a few quid, John. I'm sure you'll get a few quid. I'm sure you've already had a few quid and you're doing all right. But, we'll watch that space. But to be honest, we're not actually that interested. It's just the fact that it's a bit relevant today that we've talked about it. But what we're focused on is the Fury and Usyk fight. In the next episode, we'll continue to build up to Joshua and Ngannou. Not too much to report on that at the moment. They seem to just be locked away, training and getting ready for what's going to be another cracking cracking night. But we'll keep you
Yeah.
updated with all the boxing news. And as I promised, I will chase the rest of the team to get some WWE content and some MMA content coming your way very soon. As ever, Dave, thanks for your time.
Magic. Enjoyed that, mate.
Likewise. Speak to you soon, mate.
Sports Social Podcast Network.
Margot felt quite exquisite as she dipped her fries in mayo, gracefully extending her pinky to the sky. See, she had just saved by getting Cox Mobile for her family. Yes, more lines, more savings, Margot. Brilliant. She finished her cherry slush drink with a triumphant... exquisite indeed. Visit a Cox store and pay as low as $30 a line for 4 or more unlimited lines. 4 lines required for $30 per line price, max of 5 lines. Prices exclude taxes, device activation and other fees and charges. Other restrictions apply.